Hello, and welcome once again to Southern Circuit. I'm Rickley Stone. This special edition revisits some of the people and places we've come to know on our journeys, beginning with a stop in Madison, Florida, where Mark Cherry, a pack rat turned entrepreneur, will share the story of his new old bookstore. In Tallahassee, we'll talk with an artist who has served as an inspiration to aspiring painters. She's Jo Etheridge of Cricket Hill Studios. Judge David Taunton of Weehawken is a man with a big heart. We'll visit him at his home, where children with a variety of problems have found safe haven. And we'll conclude this week's journey at Florida State University, where pianist LEONIDAS will highlight his musical career, which started at the tender age of 4. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the journey this week on Southern Circuit. Mark Cherry has a bookstore in Madison, Florida with an odd collection of merchandise, ranging from old magazines to sheet music, and including, of course, books, some 30,000 of which Cherry's been collecting for more than 40 years.
Well, I'm sort of a pack rat. I just save everything and have been saving books, magazines, everything for years. So when time came to retire, I had stacks of stuff in the house, and I thought this would be a nice hobby. I always wanted to do something like this as a hobby. You name it, there's some of all of it here. It's not a great collection, it's not an outstanding collection, and there are very few valuable things, really valuable things here. But all of it is secondhand. It all has personality. Books really do have personalities, I think, especially people write, you know, and write inscriptions in them, and then 50 years later, somebody comes along and reads these things, and you wonder who wrote them originally, you know, and under what circumstances. I have a few that date back to the middle of the 19th century, about 1850, and that's as old as I have. But I have many books around the turn of the century. I have things like, the last of the great hotels, the last of the great health spas, and trains, books on early trains, early automobiles, old books that were very popular at one time and read by a lot of people. There are collectors today who try to find these, and they're interesting not only for the writing but for the artists that illustrated them. A number of well-known artists illustrated some of the early books. So that's what I really look for, old books that were very, very popular at one time and are no longer available. I have tried to collect, I wanted complete files of Life magazine, and I almost have them. And then other magazines are Look, Saturday Evening Post, Collier's, you know, the great magazines of the 20s, 30s, and 40s. I try to limit the collecting of magazines to those decades, the 20s, 30s, and 40s, because that was a great era in magazine publication history.
What appeals to you about collecting?
Oh, I don't know, just having something that's different from what we have today. And looking at the ads, now the ads, the commercials, as we would say today, the ads are just fabulous. These are paperbacks published by Dell that have what they call the map back. The whole scene of the action is on the back of the book. Paperbacks in the 1940s and 50s, there was tremendous competition between among paperback companies, and they resorted to all sorts of innovations to try to sell books. Dell had the map back. Now, Ace had the Ace double. You have a book on this side, then you turn it upside down, and on the other side you've got another one, 2 novels in one. These are just examples of the things that paperbacks did to try to attract customers and to try to beat their opponents. Then the Armed Services edition in World War II. Now, you know, space was at a premium. So this is not a condensation. This is the complete book. The title of this one is What's on Your Mind, and this one is The Art of Illusion. Even popular novels were put in this form to save space and sending them overseas. The first paperback was published in 1937. It was James Hilton's Lost Horizon. That was pocketbook number 1. There hasn't been as much change in paperbacks because they've always had lurid covers. They've depended on lurid, you know, violent colors to sell. The paperbacks today are larger and more expensive, but that's about the only difference. Much of the stuff I've collected myself, and my wife has helped me. And then I had an uncle who had quite a collection, and he left me most of his collection when he died. And then I go to bookstores that are going out of business, estate sales, and people bring you things. Believe it or not, almost every week somebody comes in and brings you something. I thought you would like this. There are some things that are contemporary that are going to be collector's items in the future. And you sort of have a feel for these things. So when I see a book that I know it's going to go out of print shortly, and I know that 10 years from now, somebody's going to be frantically wanting that book, so I usually try to salt away a few copies.
Is there a real knack to collecting the stuff, to knowing what's worth hanging on to?
Yes. Yes, there is. You pick it up by reading the trade journals, the Bookman's, Bookmark, a number of trade journals. If you read that very much, you soon get the feel for. But then I think every book dealer is something of an individual, and he has his own ideas. But anything Americana, anything dealing with America, and especially the West is very popular.
What's the most enjoyable part of this for you?
The people that come in and the people you meet who buy books by mail. I think that's the most satisfying thing. And then somebody who comes in and wants a book and says, I have searched and searched and searched for this book. A lady came in about the time of her high school graduation. She said that she had promised her son a book about sports. It was entitled Meat on the Hoof. And she said she had been to Tallahassee, she had been to Valdosta. She was determined to find it for him, and she had absolutely failed. And so I didn't think I had it, but I got back in the sports section, and sure enough, I had the book. And the satisfaction of this woman said, oh, I can go give it to my son now. So when you do something like that, it makes you feel good. For several years, I hope to just enjoy this hobby. And then after that, I'm going to sell it all out, and then spend my time reading all the things that I wanted to read for the last 50 years.
Ever long to express yourself with a canvas and a paintbrush? If so, you can appreciate the inspiration provided by a scene like this one. This is what one Tallahassee lady sees and sometimes paints from the veranda of her home. And for many a frustrated artist in Tallahassee, Jo Etheridge is inspiration.
I've taken art at FSU and TCC and other art teachers, and nobody has done it like Joanne. She's the greatest.
I get myself started, and there are times when I get stuck, and Jo always knows just the thing to do to get me started again.
Jo's very knowledgeable. You know, I can come up with and ask her about any problem. You know, and she seems to know exactly what I want to do, even though I don't know what I want to do. I mean, she seems to bring it out.
You know, it's a family. Jo is the mother, so to speak, and she doesn't punish you, but she'll say, ooh, maybe that way is better, or maybe this way is better. You know, it's very relaxed, very informal.
She doesn't try to force her style on us, but she really gives us a lot of the basics and encourages us to, you know, take those and go beyond, put our, you know, brush on the canvas, so to speak.
I just feel so good every time I get across to someone else what I'm trying to tell them. I seldom pick up a brush and put it on another artist's canvas. It takes something away from them. So if there's any way in the world I can come up with a way verbally to explain it to them, or pick up another painting and show them what has been done, I prefer doing that. I've been painting about 13 years, and we've had the studio about 4 years. Jim and I bought the studio from Marge Groth, who started it in her basement. And her husband had been retired for some time and decided he wanted to go home to Washington State. So off they went, and they offered us the studio at a time when I thought, after 18 years of marriage and not working at a steady job, now was a good time to help Jim put the kids through college. So I had the chance to buy the studio, and I did it, and then I love it. It's nice to be able to bring in some income doing what you like to do. The hours are crazy, and it puts your life topsy-turvy, but we knew this when we bought the studio, so we've all adjusted, and it's nice. The best of people come out when they paint. When they come into the studio, it's a part of their life that is completely different. It's separate and apart from everything else they do. They're more relaxed. They don't worry about the bills and the kids and the phone ringing and the dishes being dirty. So the best of everyone comes out. It's such an interesting thing to do that I can't imagine anyone not wanting to try it.
Why do you paint?
Well, I'm not sure what started me, but I know why I keep doing it. And I think it's because when I come here, I get really involved in it, and the time flies by, and it's kind of my stress management.
Why paint? It's a real good form of relaxation for me. It relaxes me.
Well, I've always been fascinated by artwork, paintings, and my father was an artist somewhat, had a great talent, and I've always admired him, and it kind of drove me in that direction. Just the challenge, it would take a lifetime to perfect it or master it.
Why do you paint, Linda?
Because I like it. It's fun.
For 100 different reasons. I think probably mostly because I'm addicted to it. I love the smell of paint. I love the colors. I love smearing. I love the feeling of trying to be creative. It's something that a lot of people think they can't do, and they don't know that they really can learn to do it, but it's fun. It's fun.
Well, I love color, and I just like to work with it. And Joanne is great on color. She can take a mixture that I've made up and diagnose what I put in it, because I can't remember, and I can get it back again, and she's real good on that.
Joanne is so sensitive to life. You know, I enjoy learning from her.
I learn from everyone that comes in, from the beginning student to the retired colonel who's been painting for 30 years. When I teach a new student or a new painter to clean a brush, it reminds me that I need to clean mine as well. So you're always learning from others, and it doesn't make that much difference how long they've painted, because it keeps triggering things you've read and things you've seen, and keeps refreshing your mind.
Does it make you miss the time you once spent at the easel?
Sometimes I want to pick up my brush and close the door and say no class. But I do find some time to paint, not as much as I'd like. And I do some commission work, which means I don't have much free time to play. But anytime I get a chance to put the brush on the canvas, I'm happy.
We've all had problems in our life. And just about the time we get to that point where we don't think we can take on any more of a burden, we run into a little inspiration that makes us take that extra step. Well, we've run into it about 4 miles south of Weewahichka, because behind me is the house of a family that will be all the inspiration you need to take that extra step. Judge and Mrs. David Taunton have decided as long as there are children in need, they'll have a place to stay and a family to be part of. The Tauntons have dedicated their lives and their home to the children and have no regrets.
I try to imagine the difference that possibly we've made in some of these children's lives. The little girl that had been shifted from pillar to post, for instance, the difference that we will make in her life from that instance when she was 6 months old and was horrified of being near any man. She had apparently been terribly mistreated by some men. But now, you know, for her to get up in my lap and to be, you know, I'm her daddy and she loves me and she's just lost that fear of men. Well, that's just an example, you know. At such an early age, they can already have very severe problems in adjusting. But, you know, just to imagine the difference that we can make in one little child's life, and to amplify that over 30, 40, 50 children, or maybe 100 children that we'll see come through this facility before, I get too old to be able to help children in the fashion that I am now. A long time ago, I read something very impressive that Aristotle wrote, and that was that we can be happy only to the extent that we live up to our potential. And I've been heartbroken by seeing so many children raised in a setting that just does not allow them much of an opportunity to develop their potential. A lot of them have very little chance to survive, much less to develop the potential that is instilled within them. So what we want to do is, as far as the facility, is provide a facility and a family setting that will allow as many children as we possibly can to have an excellent opportunity to develop the potential that's instilled within them.
Now, your background notwithstanding in terms of your childhood, what impact do you think being a judge and seeing the social process in a courtroom, what impact do you think that's had on this?
I think essentially what I've learned there has been that by the time a child comes before me, say an 18-year-old, he's already in trouble. And by the time it gets to the point that he gets the attention of the system, it's too late. Mm-hmm. Those children didn't have a chance, a lot of them. The biggest part of them didn't have a chance. They're right exactly where they could have been predicted to be before a judge in a jail cell. Mm-hmm. And we spend millions of dollars at that point, sentencing them to Rayford or to providing facilities such as Rayford or the other systems throughout the state. But I think it's too late. It's too little, too late, that old expression that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. You've heard that saying. And I think anything we can do when they're this age, it's this little girl right here, she'll never go to jail, I don't believe.
Some we take in, we know we're not going to be able to keep, and you try not to get too attached to them, over a short period of time. And some, like those two, when you think they're yours, then they stay overnight and you automatically are attached to them, and then you have to give them up. But basically, just to be able to help the children and to know that you're doing some good and you see what all the children these days are getting into, and if you can help just a little bit, it's worth every bit of the work. We get told we're crazy a lot, People say, oh, you're crazy to do that, but, it's just something that we want to do, and children are the most important thing this world has going for them. Without them, we're all sunk, so if we can move them along a little and inspire them to be as much as they can be, then I think it's worth it, the sacrifice. We've had some older children, and some have turned out better than others that we've tried to help. And to think that a child will go through life in an unpleasant situation. You read every day in the paper about children that their parents have beaten to death, or that they're in the hospital because of their parents, or they've just been let loose on the street, The heartache would be to realize that maybe we could have helped that child had they known we were here and been willing to let us help them rather than them going through that.
We have no connections with the state. We don't seek any help financially from the state. Would not accept any. We don't seek financial help from individuals, but we do have friends of the family that help, people that care about children and know what I'm trying to do, that contribute from time to time.
Are you doing okay financially?
The biggest part of the finance is strictly through my own effort in the family. Well, you can see here, I wish we were much further along. We spent probably $250,000 so far on the facility. I plan to spend at least that much more, possibly more than that. We never go hungry. We've recently bought a cafe, and that's helped some, a restaurant in the nearby town we were Hitchcock. So the children are always well dressed. We make ends meet, and that's about the way it's been so far.
It's worth whatever we've had to give up. We don't do a lot. We don't have a lot of extra things, but we have the things that count.
According to God's blessings, then I'll spread them as far as they'll go. There's a little saying, brighten the corner where you are, and that's exactly what we intend to do.
"46-year-old Leonidas Lipovetsky began his musical career in Montevideo, Uruguay at the tender age of 4. At 12, he gave his first professional concert and has since toured throughout the United States, Europe, and South America as a recitalist and lecturer. In 1969, Leonidas joined the faculty at Florida State University, where he has brought new life to the ebony and ivory of the garnet and gold.
I began taking lessons formally at 4, and I could play already at 4. I always remember playing that C major 4, Köchel 4, 545 Mozart sonata at 4, and many other pieces, Couperin pieces, and but it was something that probably I had been hearing music. I had been hearing from the crib, probably. I don't remember the crib very well, but but the music was always there. I love this instrument, and I love to produce tone on it, the production of color. That's the piano by itself is, you know, it's a third. But then you have the possibilities from the keys of producing the tone and producing the color. And it gives you, a harpsichord doesn't give you that, an organ doesn't give you that. There is no instrument that a violinist can do that, because he has to create the tone. But a pianist can also, but a pianist has an orchestra at his disposal. You have everything here. You have all 4 voices, and you can play all 4 voices at the same time. And if that's the challenge, to make every voice sound like it is coming from a different instrument. So you have, with 10 fingers, you have to produce what an orchestra or a string quartet can do. And the more ideas you can get, the better. Playing the piano is not just playing the notes. It's a far more difficult and deeper thing than that. Making sure that melody is going to come out. But the repetition of the chords, give it. I enjoy performing especially. I believe that a performer is like any other kind of artist. When an artist is not practicing his profession, the artist really is not living his life fully. And just to go out on stage and perform for audiences, and especially try to communicate with the audiences, that is a wonderful thing for me. I hope it is for the audiences also, but for me personally, I enjoy doing it. the moment I begin performing, I become totally involved with the music. And I'm not talking about the instrument, the physical part of playing the piano, that I don't even consider it anymore. The moment I'm performing, I'm trying to say something and to find all the colors and the meanings of the musical phrase in order to communicate that to the audience. I become the music, I think. I listen to other pianists or other musicians, not only pianists, of the past. And there are several that I greatly admired for the conviction. That is what is so important, the conviction with which you say something. It's like saying your own name. You don't have to think anymore. You just say it. And the way you say it, you know, it can be either convincing or not convincing. I try to be as convincing as I can, because that's the goal of all of this, I think.
That's Southern Circuit for this week. Thanks for being with us. Join us again next week when we continue to revisit some of the people and places we've come to know on our journeys. We hope to see you then. Good night.